Tonight, we are having another installment of Fighting Crime in Trinidad and Tobago with Captain Gary Griffith. And Gary, of course, needs no introduction, former Minister of National Security, former Commissioner of Police, some would say the best Commissioner of Police, and political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, the NTA party. So I would like to welcome you, our viewers who have joined us on Zoom. There are a number of people coming onto the Zoom. Let me just see if I can allow people to come in. Right. So there are a number of people still joining us on the Zoom. We are also live on social media on the Keep It Real Politics page. So I want to welcome you, our viewers who are joining us, those on Zoom, those on social media, also members of the media who will come onto the program. And as usual, we want to make the session as interactive as possible. So we encourage you to raise your hand if you want to make a contribution, if you want to ask a question. Please take advantage of the presence of Captain Gary Griffith and please feel free to interact with him, to ask your questions or raise your concerns. This is what this program is all about, is putting you in touch with people like Captain Gary Griffith. So I was made aware that we do have, Gary will have to leave us a little before 9:30, right? So maybe we could look to do a hard stop for this program around 9:15. Now, I know there tends to be a lot of discussion on this program, so I just want to get straight into the discussion on crime. Before I do that, though, I would like again to say that we join in mourning the death of the former Prime Minister Basiv Pandey, the founder of the United National Congress and also the fifth Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We express our sincere condolences to his family. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Of course, we had a state funeral for Mr. Pandey today. And Gary, on that note, right, just to stray a little away from crime. Now, I know many people would have expected to see you, of all people, at that funeral, but you weren't there. And I learned that you were not invited, despite the fact, you had a pretty close relationship to Mr. Pandey being his military attaché and so on. So I just wanted to ask you how you felt about that, about not being invited to that funeral. And according to some of the established protocols and procedures, were you supposed to have been invited?
Sure. Good evening to all. So in a state funeral, I actually was the coordinator for the state funeral for previous President A.N.R. Robinson, His Excellency. And in that state funeral, it was a 5-day state funeral. So I think it was probably the most difficult state funeral we ever had. And so I'm fully aware of the concept of how it operates. And on most occasions, the persons who will be invited will be between a selected number of persons from the family list and that of the state. So the state will spend more time dealing with the dignitaries, persons who would be holding positions such as ambassadors, fellow government ministers, and so forth. And the family will try to, obviously, with persons closely affiliated with the family. And that is a right. If it is that some of the people that I would have seen that were invited, obviously it wasn't that to leave out a previous Senate president, leave out somebody who was the right hand to the prime minister for his last 3 years in office, that there was no room. It definitely wasn't that. So it's obvious it was based on us being shunned, based on whatever reason, probably because Timothy Hammersmith is a political leader of a party, probably because of myself and the alliance of the NTA with the UNC that annihilated the PNM by 60,000 votes in the local government election. The point being is that is their right. If it is that persons, whether it is the family or the state that decided to blacklist us and not have us invited, that is their right. I'm certainly past the days of jumping over a railing to storm. So I really had no intention to do that. What I will do, the person you do not want to invite me, well, so be it. I think it is unfortunate. I definitely, because now usually when these things, it is usually coordinated by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time, when A.N.R. Robinson's funeral, was Winston Dukaran. The Prime Minister saw it fit to throw it on me instead to coordinate it. And how I operated was definitely not politicize a funeral of an individual who was really and truly a statesman, being somebody at Ian R. Robinson's stature. And you would have seen in that list, I had over London, I think he was chief secretary at the time. I had the leader of the opposition speaking, and I made sure it was not politicized. This one, obviously, it was very politicized, which is typical of the PNM. They, even on my pages, persons criticize me, oh gosh, Gary, but they can't, you can't attack the what was put in my release, my statements. It is unfortunate. Why would you go to your way not to even mention the leader of the opposition? If even though that there was a decision for no politician to speak, you had an order of service with the arrival of the president of the prime minister, the chief justice, the president. Why not just put the arrival of the leader of the opposition? That was all. And you see, it's these petty little things that cause persons to realize, is that how you want to run a country? What have you gained by deliberately not recognizing the leader of the opposition at that? What have you gained by not inviting the person who was the right hand of the prime minister for his last 3 years in office? I was his military attaché. I was in command of all his security, his protocol, his events, his meetings, his functions. I was the master of ceremony, his traveling, his transportation, his budget, the 200 odd persons that would be operating directly and indirectly. I basically would be the most senior person that varied from the special branch, the guard and emergency branch, the soldiers on duty, the cooks, the chefs, the administrative staff. And so, and then somebody like that, you would leave out. I spend more time with him than everybody else put together by his family. And if it is that they see it fit that they didn't want to invite me, you have done nothing to Gary Griffith, because I am fully aware of my relationship with Basio Pandey. It shows the immature response by those persons who had the authority to invite or not invite. But my concept is, if it is you didn't want to invite me, so be it. I decided I would not attend. I attended the wake. As the National Transformation Alliance, our executive went and we signed our books, our signatures in the condolence books and so forth. So we did what we could. And if it is they didn't want to invite us, I had no intention to storm. My storming days would have been over decades ago, when I was going to those fets with DJ Radiation, Purple Haze, and DJ Sin and Scorpion and so forth. My days are storming over.
But Gary, I know you touched on it briefly, right? Now, we saw where the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Teixeira, and the former Senate President, Timothy Hammersmith, also did not get an invitation. And they opted to jump, I believe it was a railing, and storm, right? Storm the funeral. I mean, I was saying Trinidad has to be the only place that I'm aware of where people storm a funeral. You know, you storm a fete, you storm a party, but a funeral. Now, I want to ask you, though, I know you touched on it a little bit, but do you feel that that was really appropriate, or was it a political stunt?
I think sometimes people work on emotions. And we have seen and heard Karen Teixeira before, and sometimes she will make knee-jerk decisions. What I was very surprised is that Timothy Hammersmith would try to follow suit. You're a Senate president, and you're there jumping over a railing. You have reached from hero to zero. You have turned hope into nope, into hopeless. I mean, people look at that. You can't expect to want to lead a country and serve a country, and because you so badly want to do something, and there's a protocol, there's something in a country that there's a reason why we have police services or force, why we have an army. You must have order. And that is why in order, whether it is that there's a police service, whether there are security guards, whether there are railings, you adhere to the order. Anytime you try to feel that you are in such a position of authority that you can bypass the order, that is what will cause confrontation with security forces. I am very disappointed to hear Karen Teixeira state that the police service or the officers, they are told her, well, the only way you can get in is by doing something that is a breach of order, because that's what the railings were for. The railings were there for a purpose to ensure order. And by her doing that, what is left for anybody else? Is it that it is okay to jump over the railing in North Stand for Panorama coming up? Is it okay to jump over to get into an all-inclusive fete? It is wrong. And I think it is unfortunate when it is persons of that degree of maturity and have that degree of political experience do not understand that when you make decisions like that, that can trigger other persons, especially young persons that can be easily manipulated to believe, well, if it is that they say that by right, I am supposed to be there, so let me do the wrong thing because I think that I am right, then order can go out the window. So it was very unfortunate. It was totally unacceptable. And I will ask each and every person who may perceive that that was the right thing to do, it was not. There's something in the military that after my 17 years service in the military, you call it comply and then complain. You were not invited, you accept it, you don't push yourself to be somewhere where you don't belong, but then you can make it known to the public of the immature actions made by the government in their invitation list. But you don't try to force your way into something. I mean, that could have turned confrontational. That could have turned into so many different things that it was totally unacceptable. So there's nothing even remotely close to understanding and trying to show some degree of compassion to state that we understand their point of view. There was no point of view for doing something like that.
I will say though, they sort of stole the show because I mean the focus went away from Mr. Pandey being buried today. I mean, such a great man to now, people storming to get into the funeral. So they did steal the show, right?
Yeah. The memes, I mean, it didn't stop. It happened for the whole day. It just kept coming and coming and coming. And it was unfortunate. So the importance of the funeral itself, it lost so much polish because, Trinidadians, it's a fun-loving society. So that became the order of the day. The concept of the funeral was unfortunately totally lost because of a very immature and irresponsible action by persons who should have known better in another political party.
Okay, Gary, you did mention something, and I noticed several members of the opposition. When I say the members of the opposition, I'm talking more the party supporters. I'm seeing the comments on social media are very upset by the way the opposition leader appears to have been treated and that she was totally shunned in the funeral proceedings, not even a mentioning of her arriving to the funeral, right? How you feel about that?
Well, again, so when people are praising the government for the way they handled this funeral, it was chalk and cheese to the funeral of A.N.R. Robinson. As I said, that one lasted 5 days. I had to take over 300 persons from a logistic perspective to transport them to Tobago, set up all the administrative instructions and so forth. And everything I did was to make sure it was not politicized. And that is the focus. The PNM, every single thing they do, it must have a political spin. It must have some little stick, some little dagger in your back and let's do it to them. That is not how you unite a country. That is not how you build a country. Was it called for? What was the need for it? To say, aha, got one of them. This game of the PNM, aha, we catch them. That is what has continued to divide the country. And it will cause people to say, well, the next time when we are back in government, we will do it to them. It's not going to happen because I will be in government. I will give the assurance. I have no intention to operate in the small-minded, irresponsible, arrogant manner that we have seen this government operate. This is not going to be a transfer of one irresponsible, small-minded government into another. How they operated in that low manner, we are not going to do that. And you would have seen it in 2014, as I said, with the funeral of His Excellency A.N.R. Robinson. The leader of the opposition was so recognized, he actually spoke. We had him in the order of service. We showed and recognized the importance of the leader of the opposition. That should be done. And by them deliberately not doing it for this funeral, it showed, again, immaturity. It showed total lack of understanding protocol. And again, it is unfortunate that lack of protocol and storming became the front burning issue. And there was no need to do it. What they feel they would have done something to Kamala Prasad-Bissessar by not recognizing her. They feel they would have done something to Gary Griffith by not inviting me. It is just the opposite. Those 150,000 floating voters take note. They have taken note of what they have done, and they said this shows how immature you are as a political party and a government, and we do not appreciate it.
Definitely, yeah. To me, it really was politicizing the whole funeral, and it was a very sad thing, right? That is my personal comment. But now, getting into what we are really here to discuss today, which is crime. And really, folks, it gives me no pleasure to have a program to talk about crime so early in the year, But it's ridiculous what is happening in this country. And we're seeing the murder toll just jumping and jumping and jumping. First weekend of 2024, one of the bloodiest weekends in history. And I think if I recall, up to maybe Sunday night, it was 17 murders for the year. 17 murders. By now, it is much higher. I don't have the figures, but 17 in itself is appalling, right? And this is more murders than any comparative period in recent years. In fact, the last 2 years, 2023 and 2022, were the most bloodiest, murderous years in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Gary, you could correct me if I am wrong, but I believe that it in fact was. Yet we are seeing now Commissioner of Police, Ulla Christopher, she's expressing optimism. And I mean, optimism is good once you could deliver what you're promising. But she's expressing optimism, saying the tides will turn. And again, she's appealing to divine intervention. So, Gary, I want to get your thoughts on, do you believe that the tide will in fact turn under this present administration and we will see a decline in violent crime?
Yeah, well, it can happen, but the only way people can believe that it can happen is by you showing that things are going to change based on what policies are you speaking about that is going to cause this change? What new units, what new type of technology, what systems operationally, tactically, strategically you are going to utilize to cause this turn? None. So even when I was commissioner of police, my first year, we had over 500 murders because I inherited like 3 or 4 years of constant increase in crime. And I told the country, I said, it's going to take me several months to transform the police service. The police service, they were totally shattered. Public trust and confidence was 14%. I had to transform the police service. I had to weed out the rogue elements. I had to bring in units, technology. So even when it is that first year, the murder rate would have been would have been just over 500. People still believe that we were in the right direction because they were seeing the Special Operation Response Team, the Emergency Response Patrol, the Operational Command Center, GPS tracking on police vehicles, the Gender-Based Violence Unit, the Social Media Unit, the Commissioner's Command Center, body cameras, tasers, pepper spray. So the customer service training for police officers, rogue officers being removed, we put in an end to kidnapping. So people saw things happening. And they believe, so even though crime was still going up, they anticipated a turnaround. And the turnaround took place where August 2020 to August 2021, we had 342 murders. 342 in any given year. It was the lowest number of murders in about 17 years. And that is where, because people saw things happening. So Ulla Christopher just wildly saying, well, things are going to turn around. He and the Minister of National Security stating that things will turn around because the Ministry of National Security, we have gone to the gym, and we have better thighs, and we have better muscles, and we have better chests. You sound stupid. You're not going to instill a degree of confidence in the public by stating the Ministry of National Security is building its strength because we are going to the gym and getting bigger thighs and biceps. No. What units, what systems, what programs, what policies, what strategies, what tactical systems are you using? He is unable to provide any as the security minister because he's totally clueless in understanding that concept of law enforcement. Ulla Christopher, she's not to be blamed. I feel really disappointed when the country continues to demonize Ulla Christopher. It is similar to if you ask me and you put me in a position to build a rocket ship. If it's horses for courses, Ulla Christopher plays, I think, 20th out of 25 for applying for the same position in 2018. And these were by qualified experts in the United Kingdom. She got like 3 out of 15 in the mock media conference. She got like 20 out of 50 in the interview. Because she didn't have the capability. She's a good administrative person. And then in 2021, she got 20% less than others. 2022, the prime minister who handpicked a president who broke the law and did not forward the meritus as she was supposed to, then handpicks a police service commission inclusive of an individual who's a financial, an accountant, and a speaking consultant. No knowledge, training, qualification, or education in any form or fashion in criminology or law enforcement. And they then turned this woman from coming 22nd to coming first. So this was a handpicked situation of somebody who was never qualified for the position, and they imposed her on us. So she's not to be blamed. Yes, people say, well, she took the job and she applied. But she applied probably on the premise and the hope that you will get some type of incompetent police service that will do exactly what they did. And nobody is condemning the police service, the Judith Jones and posse, to have them removed because of what they did. And therein lies the problem. So whereas police confidence and trust went up to 59% up to August 2021, it went down to 8% a year later. So that is where the problem lies. Trying to demonize Ulla Christopher and all of that. There's nothing that she has done because she just does not know how. So, and again, my final point on that is that, again, people criticize her for the comment about divine intervention. This has been done before. These commissioners of police before me who have no tactical or operational strategic training, they know how to wear gabardine, hold a cane, sit down in their air-conditioned office. They do not know how to take the fight to the criminals. They do not know how to give it to them before they do it to us. So what they do is they blame society, they blame parents, they blame teachers, they blame the community, and they ask for God's intervention. That is all they know because they don't understand the strategies and the tactics and the policies to measure performance, make police officers accountable, ensure proper leadership, and ensure good management. They just don't know how. So again, what we have seen now, 17 odd murders in a week, you multiply that by 4, that's 68 odd in a month. That is going to be the highest number of murders in any month in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And if you take that 60 and you multiply it by 12, you're going into 700. It is not going to get better, but instead of us demonizing Ulla Christopher, we must put it where it matters. It was Keith Christopher Rowley, based on his interference, that imposed Ulla Christopher onto Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, Gary. So what I'm getting is you're basically saying Ulla Christopher was not a case of a square peg in a round hole. And she just simply does not have the knowledge, the skills, experience to perform that job of commissioner of police. So I want to ask you, do you think that she will be replaced as commissioner of police this year?
Yeah, definitely. It's already set, it's signed, sealed, and delivered by them appointing 3 deputy commissioners of police, and they are going to be given a substantive post. Ulla Christopher is going to be the fall guy. I briefed her, I guided her, I asked her to take my advice. She refused because she's probably mortified having any dialogue with me. If it is that those who appointed her may find out and they will get upset, that being the politicians. So what has happened now is that we are going in a situation where come March or so, Ulla Christopher will be seen by the same Police Service Commission. Probably political whispers may take place. They will then say, Ulla Christopher, your contract has ended. She was the cause of the problem, and hope it can give the government some breathing room to throw Ulla Christopher under the bus and blame her for the situation. And that's what is amazing. Because when I was Minister of National Security, the responsibility for crime going up or down fell on the Minister of National Security. When I became Commissioner of Police, the goalpost shifted, and then all of a sudden, the responsibility is now on the Commissioner of Police. After I left, it has remained that way. But whether it's Ulla Christopher or not, if, say, for example, I become Minister of National Security again in the next government, I am not going to be a minister and just ask the Commissioner of Police to get the job done. As you heard Hines said, my job is just to provide resources and assets. Madness! He needs to look at his terms of reference and understand even though when I was Minister of National Security, Stephen Williams did not have a clue. But what I had to do was to operationalize the police service by forming the Rapid Response Unit, the National Security Special Operation Group, the National Operations Center, the National Security Training Academy, making sure that there was proper training for the officers. There was a shortage of police officers. Find somewhere else outside the academy so that we can have batches of 300 per batch. So that would be 600 in a year. So a minister can very well not usurp the authority, but actually impose his authority to get the job done based on the shortcomings of a commissioner of police. But when you have 2 persons who just do not know what to do in the security minister and the commissioner, then where does it lie? It now lies on the prime minister. And the prime minister is just as clueless about national security. So whereas before, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, she may not have been qualified in national security, but she ran a very good ship in the National Security Council. And that is the importance. I was the so-called expert in the council, so I'll be giving us directions, and even as the national security advisor. So even though there was a shortcoming in the commissioner of police, we still covered for it. And in that period, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years. So it showed that the position of the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, and the Commissioner of Police can make or break a country as it pertains to national security.
Okay, Gary. Now I
But
know Sapras wants to come in. So Sapras, go ahead and then we will take Summer's question.
hi Gary, Safraz Ali here. Good to have
Hi.
you on the program. So I wanna endorse what you said in your opening statement concerning crime, that you actually tackled this whole crime situation that nobody else did before. And I'll give you a small example. I have colleagues in the OSH agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Agency, Gary, and you would have formed a elite special team that included police officers and OSH inspectors. So that what happened, the OSH Act is under the purview of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and you included the OSH inspectors as part of the regulatory bodies, and you had them doing joint inspections of facilities and so on. So when the police doing their duties, the OSH inspector was doing theirs, and that actually had a significant impact both in health and safety and the criminality. So you tackled it out of the box literally, and you invested heavily in training, specialized training and equipment. So my question to you, Gary, when you when you were not selected to come back as commissioner, all these special programs fall by the wayside. Um, is the political leadership giving the police officers a fair chance in terms of equipment and resources and training, having regard to the $5 billion allocation every year from the budget, the national budget, into the national security? The reason why I'm asking this is because we had a recent kidnapping in El Sicuro, and had there been cameras in strategic locations in El Sicuro and Aranguez and on the highways and so on, and the byways, the police could have gotten real-time information and tracked that vehicle down, and they probably could have saved the victim much earlier. So I'm asking you, is the political leadership presently, the PNM government, given enough resources and arming, literally arming the police and the protective services to do their jobs properly?
Yeah, well, the answer definitely is no. But it is not so much of the resources. It has to do with the deliberate dismantling and shutting down of units, systems, and technology that would have been instrumental to peg back criminals. It wasn't by, if you recall, a few moments later videos, as soon as someone would show brandish an illegal firearm or make a threat to someone, within 24 hours, we'll have that person apprehended. That can never happen again. It's not taking place now. That's why all of a sudden you're seeing lots of punks now showing off their weapons, and they know that nothing is going to be done. But before that, they would have seen what would have happened. Kidnappings came to an end. We put an end to kidnapping. This wasn't police officers just waiting for the ransom. The family pays the ransom, and hopefully release the person and say, well, we have done our job. That is not a rescue. That is a release. There's a difference. What we did was utilizing technology, and technology that we had, to be able to pinpoint and target kidnappers who actually held the victims, that we can break down the door, arrest the kidnappers whilst the victim was still in their possession. That is what you see that in Hawaii Five-O and SWAT television series. We were doing it. We were doing it through a unit called the Special Operation Response Team, a team that was heavily polygraphed, highly trained, and it prevented police officers who would be rogue. Because in fact, the first kidnapping release we did with Natalie Polony, there were police officers involved. And that's when I realized if we want to deal with putting an end to kidnapping, we can't have police stations and everybody involved and understanding what our information and evidence is, because that is where they will tip off their allies who had the victims. So there were over 10 persons that would have been released whilst being held in captive by the kidnappers, and the kidnappers were arrested. That never happened before. Because of that, kidnappers realized, we don't know what the heck this guy is doing, so let's find something else to do. Kidnappings came to an end. Home invasions came to an end, because by the time you jump that wall and someone calls 999, that 999 will go immediately to an operational command center. We will see the house. We will look at the police vehicles in closest proximity. You call it AOR, the area of responsibility. So within less than 5 minutes, we will respond. So as soon as you jump back over the wall, we got you. We put an end to those things. So what the government has done is a typical thing that governments do. Somebody who's not aligned to us, shut down, dismantle, remove every single thing he has done. The PNM have deliberately sabotaged the operational capability of the police service because of petty politics. And I hope that anybody speaking here today, I would like somebody, Lisha, somebody who might be a PNM supporter. I challenge you. I want you to bring questions. I want people to bring more questions to me for me to expose the incompetence, if not this sabotaging of you would see by the PNM in dismantling, shutting down assets, units, personnel that have caused the criminals to come back out into the open. From 342 murders in 1 year, my last year, we are now going to over 600. So, and it's not just about the statistics. The perception and fear of crime is just as important as crime itself. And people are fearful. So to hear Ula Christopher say, well, before was 500, 602 murders, this year we only had 580, so there's a decrease in the increase. It doesn't matter. People are more fearful in 2023 than they were in 2022. So the perception and fear of crime, it's just critical. When I formed the NYPD, they showed me this in the mid-90s. New York police officers were known as pigs. And then crime was high. They transformed it. There was a 57% reduction in murders and 50-odd% in serious crime. And the citizens in New York still did not feel safe. So the mayor, the commissioner of police understood they still failed. They had to transform the NYPD. And then within a few years, they became known as America's finest. That is what I had to do, transform the police service from being seen as obnoxious, rogue elements, start arresting those police officers, to do proper training for customer service. All of those things we did. They shut that down and removed it. So now you're getting back police officers where instead of you going online to report an incident, whether it's fraud, somebody stole mangoes in your yard, we're going back to the old-time 20th century policing where you have to go to a police station. That is backward policing, thanks to the PNM. I put an end to that because of the online reporting, because of the police app. And then, because the officers are not being properly disciplined, you will get a WPC to say, well, you don't know where the police station is, why don't come and make a report? Had I been there, that is not about a matter being investigated. She should have been suspended immediately. But you're now doing an investigation. The investigation is an excuse to keep the person working on full pay. So it takes away the deterrent for the others to realize I can do the same thing and nothing will happen. She should have got in local parlance a throat bust a long time. And that is what sets the precedent for other police officers to know this must not happen. So the arrogance and stuff by a few is going to start coming out again. And it all has to do because of our government's interference in an independent process.
Okay, I see Mr. Donnie Rogers with his hand up. Donnie, go ahead.
Hi, good evening to the guest, Captain Griffith, and to you as well, the host, Lisha, and to all the other listeners. You raise a very important topic there when we are talking about the technologies that were implemented for the police service in the fight against crime. One thing I've noticed, and from information coming to me, is that, I mean, we all know we have a cybercrime unit at the TTPS. And via Facebook, you see a lot of very libelous, and we could just put it as nasty posts coming up. And I know as a matter of fact that these posts were reported to the cybercrime unit. And a certain response was given in the negative. I would like to ask a very specific question. Does the TTPS have the equipment where the origination of certain posts via Facebook and other social media can be traced?
Well, you know what I definitely would want to do is to reveal the exact type of technology. What I can't state, all right, so I have to be very careful not to reveal what
That's
it is.
understood. That's
What
understood.
I have access to. What I can state, however, is that certain things we had in place. We had a social media monitoring unit. And people say, what is that? Again, by me working with the NYPD, by linking both of us, the NYPD showed me that by having this unit, they were able to monitor things on social media of gangs that will be making statements prior to a crime taking place or boasting about a crime that they took place. So what we did is that a social media monitoring unit assisted us in what is known as preventative policing, where we were able to prevent the crime from taking place. So when people say, well, you can't stop a man if he wants to do it. Yes, you can. It happened on many occasions. And because of SORT, we will be aware of a tip-off through social media monitoring, through Facebook, through social media, where we will know that this vehicle has these weapons and they're heading here to hit on a prison officer. We will intercept it and those persons will be arrested, if not shot at. If it is that they shoot at the police first. That is how we dealt with these things, in a very clinical manner, utilizing the type of technology, even going into the dark web. And all of these things have been shut down, removed, dismantled. And it shows how petty Keith Rowley is. It shows how petty the PNM is. And may I also add, certain senior officers in the police service. McDonald Jacob decided to fire 19 highly qualified managers in social media monitoring, in the administration, in the IT department, in the legal department, that would have been instrumental in transforming the police service. His stupid comment is, we don't need civilians to run the police service. We can do it on our own. The man is so clueless. If you go back to Chicago, LA, whatever, there are many civilians who hold the degree of qualification, whether it is forensic testing or dealing with investigative techniques, who spent a lot of time in universities to understand their specific fields that the average police officer does not and is not qualified in. And it helped in us winning cases, making sure that when we go to court, we had qualified attorneys, not police officers with the first year with first year degree going against hardened seasoned attorneys, making sure that we had persons highly qualified in fraud, forensic testing. He removed all of them. And then lo and behold, today there are advertisements to bring in the same people, the positions of people that you fired that would have been instrumental in transforming the image of the police service and the productivity of the police service. So as it pertains to your concept of social media, there are units, there are systems, there's technology that would have been utilized, and it was very productive in pegging back criminals, providing preventative policing, and actually solving crime. But as I said, all of these things have been shut down, dismantled, and removed because of petty politics.
Very sad state of affairs. I want to just welcome everybody who is on social media. Now, I am seeing many people commenting that the PNM and the Prime Minister has to go, and that is the only way we are going to solve crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Gary, what do you think about that?
Well, I tried, and you see, I don't think the country could wait until then. That is my concern, because as it goes along, if this continues, we are going to crack 650 murders this year. And it's not just about the murders, it's the fear of crime. When it is you have a major international arm in the energy sector pulling back their funding for something simple as Carnival, that is the beginning of the end. When you start getting those type of foreign investors starting to pull back their budgetary allocations and for that, and it will start going to other things, crime can very well cripple this country. And Keith Rowley has refused to accept any support because of his arrogance. Now, Patrick Manning said it. He said if this man doesn't have his way, he would basically rather see everything burn down. And that is what he's doing. You can't be so arrogant to understand you have the most cruelest security minister. You have an incompetent police service commissioner that hired somebody who placed 20th odd just a few years ago to be commissioner of police. You have no one in your cabinet that has any knowledge in law enforcement. And instead of you trying and be willing to accept and embrace the support, if this man had any concept of tactical strategy in politics, he would have welcomed the support from Kamala Persad-Bissessar and myself. If it does not work, he can then say, you see, these people came and they're just as useless as me. So that can't be a reason to remove me. Bam, you win. If it works and crime goes down, the country will see you for being the type of political leader that embrace others who may not have your political party card to do what is right for the country, and you will have still won. So it would have been a win-win situation. The man is so bitter, so full of hate that when he can't have his way, he gets out of control. He doesn't understand that from having a win-win situation, he is doomed now to defeat. And it's not defeat and people will say, well, thank God. I have no intention to see one life lost to cause us to win an election. That is not me, which is why I offered. This was of no value to Gary Griffith. We could have sat back and watched Rome burn. In fact, people who have certain persons have told me that they say, let it burn, let it destroy. I can't do that. I put my hand on a Bible on 3 occasions as a soldier, as a politician, and as a commissioner of police. And I'm not cut like that. If I know that this man does not know what to do, and I could guide him to save one life, and if that helps him stay in government, so be it. I ask all persons who want to be in office, try to be a patriot before being a politician. The votes will definitely come. And that's what I'm seeing is continuing to happen. He's not going to take the support, he's not going to take the advice. The criminals are going to benefit, and the country will continue to burn and drown in blood.
But if you shun everyone who is not a PNM supporter, then you're shunning 70% of the population, because only 30% supports the PNM. PNM has always been a minority government. So we
Correct.
can't operate like that, you know. I mean, at reach a point now, you're getting killed for just looking outside your window.
Yep.
Your eyes outside your window, you're going to peep, bam, you're dead on the ground. Right?
Yep.
What is happening in Trinidad and Tobago? Now, I just want to take a couple of questions here from the chat. Pleasant good evening. This is a question from Summer. This question is for Mr. Gary Griffith. In the near future, will you put aside your new venture in politics for another shot as Commissioner of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service if given the opportunity?
No, I've been there, done that. What I've done now is by transforming the police service, going back as commissioner of police. I know that is what I'm getting. A lot of people saying they want me back as commissioner. Trust me, Trinidad and Tobago, the position I would be in the very near future when the government changes very soon, it is not just going to transform the police service back to how it was. It is going to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force for them to be utilized in the manner that they should. When we had 150 men coming down into Port of Spain to destroy Port of Spain, every soldier, sailor, and airman remain in their camp. That is not their fault, but it's because of lack of management and leadership. We have 4,000 bodies there that could assist. I intend to transform the Defense Force to be the best that they can be, to assist in transforming Trinidad and Tobago by putting so much pressure onto those criminals. They are going to back off even more than they did when I was commissioner of police. I will transform the fire services. I will transform the prison service to make sure that there's proper rehabilitation because our recidivism rate is so high. We will transform the criminal justice system to prevent persons. When you are charged for a misdemeanor, you end up in remand for 10 years for a charge with the maximum sentence being 6 years. So it is not just the police service I intend to transform, but we are going to transform every arm of the public sector and make Trinidad and Tobago the country it can very well be.
Okay, so moving on to another question from Richard. You can have all the laws, technology, equipment readily available. You need human intervention to manage, detain, or arrest suspects, etc. What is the purpose of the Defense Force within the present challenges that Trinidad and Tobago faces?
Well, I just mentioned that. So, and for example, we had a state of emergency, and not one member of the Defense Force came out. So there's lack of leadership by the government itself. Stuart Young sat down and twiddled his thumbs and did nothing. He showed how clueless he was by not understanding the value of the Defense Force. The hierarchy of the Defense Force preferred not to come out and do their job. And I intend to make sure that the Defense Force will be properly utilized. The perception by certain persons, even when I was minister, they said, well, soldiers are trained to kill and nothing else. Very dumb statement. And the reason being is that I was the first Trinidad and Tobago soldier to return home with something known as a United Nations peacekeeping medal. Peacekeeping. We are trained to patrol. We are trained to act as an aid to civil power. We as soldiers would have been trained to support the police. So if you have those 4,000, you add that with the police service, that numerical superiority is going to annihilate and peg back the criminal elements. So if the criminals want to, because right now it is a war, it is no longer armed conflict. We have more persons being killed than some countries that have armed conflict. We need to utilize the talent, the training, the resources we have, and that involves arms of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. And I intend to utilize them in a proper manner. You have an air guard with 500, and they don't even have a paper plane. What is the value of it unless you give them the resources for them to be of value towards the security of Trinidad and Tobago? We have a Coast Guard with over 12 vessels, and 9 of them were pulled up because of the incompetence and the pettiness of this government by not servicing the dormant vessels that we acquired that cost 1.2 billion TT less than the 3 OPVs, and the dormant vessels would have done the exact things that the OPVs would have done. This is what we speak about, and this is how we can actually utilize the services of all arms of our protective services to make this a better and safer Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, Donnie, I see you have your hand up again. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the time again. Captain Griffith, you spoke about changes that you would be making once government changes. And honestly, it gave me a little bit of ray of hope there. And I'm hoping, by all means, this change occurs. Now, I would like to go back to, I know memes flying all over the place today with the former finance minister, just in the manner which memes started to fly about W.P. Edwards, I believe her name is. What changes? Now, just for that, I believe that the commissioner was very disingenuous when her releases only spoke about customer service. Because, in my opinion, that was a clear dereliction of duty by the woman police. She failed to record information, to even put a telephone message, and to do the basic functions when a report as a home invasion, which is a serious reported crime. It is a SRC, it's not a minor crime, it's not a minor offense. So it is one of the most serious classification of offenses. And she failed to record any type of information and put anything that resembling a report in a telephone message book. What would be the changes that the public or the police service could expect to deal with officers who are um, who are this derelict, if I could put it in that manner?
Well, as I said, I believe in swift justice as Commissioner of Police. Firstly, if it is that anytime you're a serving police officer and you try to be political in any form or fashion, I immediately, again, local balance, bust your throat, suspend you immediately. There's somebody who's a big Calypsonian, and after I suspended him, he's singing Calypsos about me still. But the fact of the matter is, know your place. You can't be a serving police officer and be so bold to be going around and basically showing your affiliation to a political party. So when I did that, everybody, and police officers have their right to decide who they want to support. But you have to operate in a very neutral, independent manner, not a dog bark after that. As soon as I left, now you're getting police officers on Facebook attacking one political party, saying that one day I will deal with you. And nothing is being done because they know that the product of opportunity is there now for them to be rogue. And the same thing happens in these situations. So how again, another quick one was the problem we had with police absenteeism at court. The numbers was astronomical. We were talking about the vast majority of police officers were being absent from court. So when the person is arrested and charged and he goes to court, the police officer is not there and the man is released. It caused the criminals to realize I could go and rape and steal and whatever, and I know I will get out because the officer is not going to show up. The Police Service Commission lays with me on it, and there was a 91% reduction in police absenteeism because I started making sure they had backup police officers. And as soon as a police officer was absent, I immediately disciplined you with possible suspension. That is how you have to deal with these officers. You can't expect to be flexible. So again, in this situation with this officer, what nonsense is Earl stating? We have to launch an investigation. It is there. She should have been suspended immediately, but you're transferring her to Toko. I don't know wherever, that's what I heard. Isn't they trying to disrespect Toko to say that that is what you deserve? Somebody that has done that and she that been an SRP should be removed immediately. And that is, I mean, again, that is my type of training. You're guilty until proven innocent as it pertains to law enforcement. The Welfare Association will have all their concerns, but you cannot have a situation like that and then say that the officer is still on active duty whilst the matter is being investigated. What is there to investigate? That should have been dealt with in 24 hours. That is my point. But more important, my final point on that is that the concept of what we have spoken about, nobody in the media, or media is sometimes so afraid to ask the hard-hitting questions. Earlier, Christopher, Gary Griffith put in something known as the online reporting. That was the days of people going to police stations are outdated. You know, every time there's a crime, you want to put up a police station at that corner. That is outdated policing. You could tell me how you could pinpoint police stations in Miami or in London. People don't go to police stations anymore. It is customer service. We deliver to you. So if there was a situation, somebody give you a bounce check, you're not supposed to go in a station and make a report. You go on online. If it is that there's domestic violence, you go online and it goes straight to the gender-based violence unit. The gender-based violence unit then comes to your home. So if you were beaten or raped, you're not supposed to go to a police station, battered, bruised, and sometimes now being ill-treated by a police officer who's not trained or qualified to understand the sensitivity and the confidentiality that is required from such a crime taking place. So when it is you hear this police officer come to the station make a report. Earlier, Christopher and company have shut down the online reporting. People are not supposed to be going to a police station to make reports anymore. That's what we had. We had online reporting. We had police app. We had an SOS on your phone. So you press that if you're under pressure, and immediately it will be triggered to our operations center, and we'll come to your assistance. That is what people should be asking. Why did you shut down the online reporting? Why did you shut down the police app? Why did you shut down the SOS on the phones? Why are you causing people to have to come back to a police station to submit a report of any matter? That is outdated policing. And if it's a matter that requires immediate response, you dial 999. That 999, as I said, we will have it based on priority. So your cat stuck in a tree is level 4. Somebody is breaking into your home immediately. Within 3 to 4 minutes, we'll have that vehicle there. All of that has stopped. So a man can now blow someone's head off in Residence nightclub, which is 20 meters from the commissioner's residence, which is just about 2 minutes from St. James Station, 3 minutes from St. Clair Station, 5 minutes from Woodbrook Station, and it will take 40 minutes for the police to turn up because the systems of technology to ensure an immediate response have all been dismantled.
Terry, I see Richard here saying you were very accessible as a commissioner via your number. So kudos to you for that. I know Safraz wants to come in. Safraz, go ahead.
Yes, Leash, thank you very much. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Gary, during your tenure, you would have empowered citizens by making access to firearm user license a little more easier, navigating through that tough bureaucratic process that seems to be almost impossible to get a FUL. Right now, it would appear that this current administration making it harder again for law-abiding citizens like ourselves to protect ourselves literally. Two questions from that. What scientific basis is driving their approach in making it harder for citizens to get a FUL? And on the flip side, if citizens have that FUL, do you think it would be a crime deterrent for would-be bandits and criminals?
So, okay, well, the first one, the reason why firearms are given out to law-abiding citizens is simple. It is because of the state's inability to protect you. So we are giving you the opportunity to protect yourself, which is why in the United Kingdom, for example, it is going to be very difficult to get a firearm because how the United Kingdom is locked in as an island, it is virtually impossible to have someone with an illegal firearm. So because of that, even police officers on the beat, they don't carry firearms. So it is very rare to have illegal firearms. So if there's rare to have illegal firearms, then there's no need for you to be issued with a legal firearm. So when people try, and Canada is the same thing. In other countries, if it is that there's such a mass amount of illegal firearms or persons with firearms who use it for the wrong method, then and the state cannot protect you, that is where it is they start giving out firearms. But you have to be careful. So what Fitzgerald Hines and company have done is try to utilize and use the United States system to show, look how we could get out of hand because of mass shootings. But the fact of the matter is that we have a system here in Trinidad and Tobago that has never happened. But you're waiting and hoping someday that it could happen to say, you see, we told you so. But back at the ranch, 99.9% of homicides committed by firearms in the last 10 years have been by illegal firearms. And dozens upon dozens of lives have been saved by persons being issued with legal firearms. So what the government tried, remember the PNM, what they're good at is say the same lie over and over and hope that the country will believe you. That is what they did with Emailgate. They went on a witch hunt and a fishing expedition to give the impression that firearms were being issued through bribery and corruption. And through the Stanley John fake report and other reports, the audit committee, 30 months later, 2.5 years later, not one senior police officer, not one firearm dealer, and not one firearm holder has been arrested for any such activity, which shows it was all lies. So now that they've realized that, they have to double down and try to find an avenue to say, okay, we realized there was no corruption there, right? So Stanley John's report on that was total nonsense. So what we have to say is that Gary was giving out too many firearms. What is your measurement for that? There were 50,000 persons who have applied for firearms. 50,000. Tens upon tens of thousands have not even had the common courtesy by commissioners before and after me because of their incompetence and their lack of basic training as a commissioner to respond to these individuals. So what I got is I inherited tens of thousands of applicants because of the failure of other commissioners to do their job. So the PNM government has attacked me for being competent, for doing my job. So by Fitzgerald Hines stating, well, commissioners before Gary will only give out 400 firearms a year, but Gary was giving out 2,000. What makes it that I did something wrong? Should it not be seen that the officers, the commissioners before me, because of their failure to get it done? And by you keep making it difficult, it is what caused corruption. Because now you know it is so difficult to get a firearm, you will pay and you will bribe officers. I opened that Pandora's box to make sure that the small fisherman, the farmer, the small businessman had the opportunity, not just for the rich and famous who can knock on the door, call a prime minister, which prime minister and minister of national security, by the way, were harassing me to provide firearms for their friends in high places. But you had a problem with me giving it to those persons who needed it to protect their family, to protect their livestock, to protect their assets. And in that 4,000 I issued, half of those were to law enforcement officials, past or present, whose lives have been on the line because of their service to country. Police officers, fire officers, prison officers, soldiers, and sailors. And in that 4,000, not one was lost, stolen, or used for a crime under my watch. So it showed that this government has spent all of their time on a witch hunt, on a fishing expedition to stop law-abiding citizens from having firearms, and they have done nothing to try to put an end to illegal firearms entering the country. And I really hope I could get some PNM support here. There were 130,000 of you all that still voted for the PNM, even though we got 60,000 more votes than in the local government election. You were annihilated. I want PNM supporters to come and challenge me on this. I want debates with you all. But they are staying inside, staying quiet because they know they cannot debate. They cannot challenge me on the things that I am saying.
By the way, we welcome everyone to this program, regardless of your political persuasion. I mean, we are here to discuss things based on merit. So it doesn't matter, PNM, UNC, Hope, no Hope, you're welcome on this platform, right? I just want to acknowledge a few people who are on the chat with us. We have a few of our shadow councillors. I'm seeing Ryan Digans, and I'm also seeing Lyndon. Lyndon is here with us. Ryan Diaz, and Lyndon Degans. And of course, Safras Ali, who is a former local government councillor. So guys, I want to thank you all for your interest in this program. I'm also seeing Dr. Philip with us, Philip Augustus with us. So thanks so much for joining the program. Now it is 9 o'clock, so we have Gary for 15 more minutes. So I encourage you, anybody who wants to ask a question or make a comment, now is the time to do it. There are a couple of questions. I want to take one from social media. Corruption in the TTPS appears to be the norm. Besides training, what can be done to combat corruption in the TTPS?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And that is what played a very big part towards public trust and confidence moving from 14% in August 2018 to 59% when I left. Because we put systems in place to measure performance, make police officers accountable, and again, find specific units that were separate and apart from the police service, such as the Special Operation Response Team, where we started realizing and understanding certain officers who were aiding and abetting in criminal activity. So, for example, certain police officers will be covering individuals in drug blocks. Police officers will be escorting criminals in transportation. Certain police officers would be involved in corruption of firearms. Certain police officers would be involved in overtime corruption. So we targeted these individuals. Sometimes, like for example, in the Southwestern Peninsula, we will know that they will have reports of a certain station heavily involved in turning a blind eye to allow illegal drugs, weapons, and human trafficking to enter our shores. I started doing polygraph testing. Do you financially benefit from this entering our country, our shores illegally? Those persons who did not want to answer, I can't take disciplinary action, but by reassign them in a specific area, because there's a difference with evidence and intelligence. Officers who would have been involved and intelligence of them controlling drug blocks and protecting the persons there and getting a cut, we will transfer them as well or send them on 2 years leave. Individuals were involved. There was a multi-million-dollar racket in overtime corruption. I'm speaking about what it was. It was almost $100 million I was able to cut by police officers, just a couple hundred, stating that they were working 24 hours a day, 30 days a month, and going home with $80,000 in overtime when their salary should be 10 or so. And this was being signed by other senior officers who were getting a cut. And I put an end to it with a cap. And by putting an end to it, it affected these persons involved in that criminal enterprise of over $100 million in taxpayers' dollars. By me utilizing that, I was able to take those funds and redirect it to change the uniform, to put in GPS tracking on police vehicles, acquire body cameras, get pepper spray, get tasers, put the dashboard cameras on the vehicles, and without having to ask the government for extra funds, because Imbert kept cutting our funds annually in a situation during COVID when it is that the police would have been at their highest. So there were systems I put in place to deal with the criminal elements. Then again, the 482 Gary, by the public started giving me information that they were afraid to pass to any police officer. I will utilize it, not breach the confidentiality, utilize that information to then look at the police officers who would be involved and utilize the units such as the Special Operation Response Team to be able to monitor, put sting operations on them. And with that, many of the rogue officers immediately started operating in a manner befitting of a police officer because the deterrent was there. Sadly, as I said, as I left, the systems, the units and everything, now they've gone, even some of these officers went back to the same locations after I left. They were reassigned. And again, it shows that this is not to discredit the whole police service, but all over the world, there will be bad eggs. How you deal with them is a critical part towards improving the public trust and confidence in the police service.
Okay, there's another question here from Summer. Having previously mentioned the Special Operations Response Team, reference the previous members, what is their current status? Are they being utilized?
No, they're not. They've been dismantled. And the sad thing is they use the excuse of an incident involving two persons who would have been on 63 charges for rape and attacking women. 63. And these persons died whilst in custody of SOT. And that was seen by Jacob and others as an excuse to shut down the most critical unit that pegged back criminals. But there are other units that have been involved in killing 3 and 4 citizens in broad daylight, when the officers have all been suspended, but those units have not been touched. So it showed it was deliberate pettiness. So the SWAT officers who were all highly trained, who were very tactical, that put fear in the criminals, it's all been dismantled. It has been changed to something called the National Operation Task Force. You would have never even heard about it. So for 2 years, people knew SWAT, you used to call it Gary Boys. As soon as Gary's Boys have reached everybody back off. You've changed that, and for 2.5 years with a unit that nobody has heard one thing that they have done. I think their biggest success was arresting an old lady on the pavement for selling school books. That is what that unit has reached to. And it shows again, when you shut down and you dismantle things that worked, you make you wonder, are you that incompetent, or was there a deliberate attempt to try to help the criminals?
Okay, guys, it is now 9:04, so we're getting into actually our final 11 minutes of the program. So again, now is the time. If anybody has a contribution or has any questions, please raise it, right? Gary, there is a question I have for you. Now, the opposition leader has announced that the UNC will be kicking off their anti-crime consultations with the public next week. And I believe the first UNC consultation is started to take place on Monday at La Jolla, and you will be one of the speakers, along with, I believe, it's Professor Hubert Daisley, Dr. Indira Rampasad, and Mr. Ralph Maraj.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, what are you hoping to come out of these crime consultations?
Well, one of the main things, this is not a political ploy. This is exactly what Kamala Prasad-Bissessar was gunning for when she approached Keith Rowley to explain to him, this cannot be, you trying to solve the problem is not by having politicians sit down on a table and discuss legislation. That now just becomes a subcommittee of parliament. That is not what it was for. So that is what Keith Rowley wanted to have the talks with the opposition about. Let's just talk about legislation. No. My concept, I was meeting to explain the tactical, strategic, and operational systems that we can use. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, her concept is very important. It is getting a buy-in, getting the public hearing their concerns, hearing their needs, and hearing their recommendations. Many of the policies I put in place was because of listening to the man on the street. I visited all 70-odd police stations within my first 2 months as commissioner. Almost every night, I was on the street in patrols, operations, roadblocks, without the media even knowing as commissioner of police. That's why I ended up in the hospital on 2 occasions with burnout. You've got to be on the ground. You've got to be on the streets. You've got to meet people and hear their concerns, hear their needs, hear their recommendations. So that's the importance of something like that. It is not just a talk shop. It is not just for us to come and give you our crime plans to let you vote for us to get us in government. This is making sure that that link between the public and the persons who may have the influence to make decisions and operationalize those recommendations can work. So that's the importance of such meetings.
So guys, we will keep you informed on this program about these public consultations, and I am hoping that the members of public do go out and speak to the stakeholders and let us see what we could do. And I just want to quote Senator Julie John. She said, "It's time for collective action, as the government's failure cannot be the citizens' excuse for inaction." Right? And that's I think it's a very powerful quote, because the government has failed in the war against crime. Let us not beat around the bush about it. They had 8 years, this regime had 8 years to deal with it. We have had the two worst murder rates last year and this year. Look at what has happened just this week alone. 17 murders in 1 week. People getting gunned down and killed for looking outside their window because they hear a noise, right? That is what it has come to. So I do believe now that it is time for civil society to take some kind of action. And I want to ask this question. I believe it is from Kendall, was on the chat here. What do we as citizens do until the government changes? Because we are getting a lot of feedback that not just with crime, but with all the problems, all of the really serious issues and problems we have in this country, that the only way we will see some sort of turnaround is with a change in government. But then what are the citizens to do until the government changes? Now, if this government goes for another 2 years, based on the murder rate of, let's just say, approximately 600 per year, we will be sitting down and waiting for 1,200 people to die. That is what is going to happen before the government changes. 1,200. Now imagine 100 people in a room and multiply that by 12. That is how many people in Trinidad and Tobago will be killed before the government changes. So this is a very good question that can ask, what do we as citizens and as a civil society do until the government changes? Because this government has failed at crime. They have failed. Gary, I don't know if you have any comment.
Yeah, well, it's not just crime, they fail in dealing with the economy, health, education, everything. They have, and that has become a catalyst towards crime also increasing, because if it is, you don't have a proper system for education, you don't have a proper system for sport and development, getting young persons away from a life of crime. So it is not just because they fail to deal with law enforcement strategies. They have failed across the board. What it was unfortunate is that this country, sometimes we become so immune to the incompetence of this government. We accept their failure, we accept their incompetence, and we just wait until another day goes by. And the government have realized that. So what Keith Rowley has done, and Heinz on many occasions, earlier Christopher, you notice, she never speaks to the media. She never has a press conference. She will just send a release or send something prepared and give to the media. They have now decided they are going to stay inside and say nothing and do nothing, knowing that Trinidad and Tobago is a 7-day wonder. So they'll have something and just hope that it will disappear. And we have seen it. When it is we had this situation with these firearms and the government started doing everything, everyone stayed quiet because they didn't want it to affect them. But then eventually it starts all these chambers that when these things happen, when it is you went and interfered with the merit list, no one said a word. And now it is affecting you. And now people out there, they want to cry. But again, they are so afraid of being victimized by the government. They are so afraid of being targeted by the government, because we have seen what is known as dictatorial democracy, where they have operated in such a high-handed manner where they target persons who may be opposed to the government to have them arrested. So people are fearful. This country, it is on the verge of anarchy. It is a dictatorial government, and people are fearful. So how many people have the strength and the courage to tell the government enough is enough in a democratic manner? We're not speaking about civil disobedience, but persons basically opening their mouths and saying, what you're doing is wrong. Because jump high, jump low. There was 190,000 votes for the NT and UNC to 130,000. That's a 30% voter turnout. A 60%, you multiply that by 2. PNM is not going to get more, because the higher voter turnout, that's when the floating voters come out. 260,000 people out there are still going to vote for the PNM. But where are the 380,000 voices that are needed to let that 260,000 know, hey, what is enough. We can't accept this. But Keith Rowley has played this well. He understands that people are fearful, they are afraid, and sometimes they just say, well, let's just hope until tomorrow comes and the hiccup we made will be forgotten. It is time for the law-abiding citizens, the business sector, the religious organizations to realize the man has destroyed the country, and we need to let him know we can't wait until there's another election, because by that time, hopefully it could be in a few months. Worst case scenario, it could be 15, 16 months. And if we cannot wait, thankfully we could say next year is a general election. But so many things can happen between now and next year. Keith Rowley needs to understand is either you shape up or you ship out.
And yes, a lot could happen between now and next year. Many more people are going to die.
Yes.
Many more people are going to be robbed. And many innocent people, many innocent people. So folks, that is what we are looking at. This is the sort of future we are looking at. And hopefully, not hopefully, we have to make this change in government happen. It must happen because Trinidad and Tobago cannot continue down this line. Now we have 3 minutes to go, and I want to ask Gary for any closing remarks. I know you've said a lot, Gary, but do you have any closing remarks for us?
Yeah, well, again, as I said, that we can only do so much because of the present situation. The government has basically destroyed the country. They have divided the country. My intention is to do just the opposite, to be able to do all the damage control of all that they have done to destroy Trinidad and Tobago, to divide Trinidad and Tobago. They have done it well. They have played it, but it is a PNM mantra. Let us divide and conquer. Let us divide and scrape orders at 2120 or 2219 and hope it's not going to happen again. The local government election results would have shown that they are going to be defeated comprehensively, similar to 2010. I ask the country to hold strain, continue to do what you have to do. Let us continue to do it within the law. But again, if we put enough pressure on the government, we can't just be silent and hope that somebody else will represent us. We need to let those persons in authority know that your days are numbered. You need to, if it is you want to have a snowball chance in hell to remain in government, you need to start showing some degree. I mean, the situation of you deliberately out of bad mind, so they want me to remove Hines because of that, I'm not moving him. That shows arrogance at the highest level. The man has proven to be the most incompetent and arrogant minister in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And you as a prime minister say, I don't care what all you say, I put him there just for that. I mean, is that what? So again, I was really hoping I could get some PNM supporters here for me to take them on, but they won't. They will stay as cowards. They will come on social media. Oh God, Gary, give us a chance. You're talking too much. They can't debate. They can't fight with facts, and that is the unfortunate thing. So I ask the country again. We just continue to hope and believe